welcome everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Insights Conversations with real estate leaders or industry leaders. And I am pleased and honored today to have a special guest, Neal Oates Jr. He's been a friend of mine since 2017, and he's a well-known coach, trainer, mentor all throughout not only Florida, but the United States. I want to welcome you, Neal. Let me give you a legitimate introduction here, okay? That's just kind of like off the cuff, but let me give you what I prepared. Neal Oates Jr. is a distinguished figure in the real estate industry, known for his client-centered approach and professional services. He began his real estate career as a client care manager in Miami, showcasing his commitment to customer satisfaction from the start. In 2014, he founded world-renowned real estate, recognized a gap in the market for client-focused real estate services. This venture underscores his dedication to excellence in the real estate field. Additionally, Oates is known for his contribution as a professional speaker, further demonstrating his industry expertise and leadership. So welcome, Neal Oates Jr.
Oh, thank you, sir, so much. So glad to be here. And that bio, that intro was one that I'm going to have to steal from you, sir. That was good stuff.
By any means, man. This is whatever we do here today. You are welcome to it as well. I'm sure you're going to be delivering all kinds of gold that it's going to be some great takeaways that you can share with people too. I just got to say that, we met in 2017 at an instructor training with the Florida Realtors. And, it's just when we left there, it was shortly after we finished that class. And it was around the time of my birthday. And I got a voicemail from you that I still have on my phone today. It just blew me away, right? And I think that that's a big part of who you are and the kind of customer service that you provide to people and the connection that you make. Because from that point on, I just felt connected with you. And every time we'd see, it was always a matter of, giving the great big hugs and just really having a nice conversation and just talking about life in general. So I really do appreciate you and appreciate you taking your time to come on here today to help me help others here in 2024. So thank you for that, Neal.
Let me jump in here and just comment really quickly. First of all, I appreciate your appreciation, but I know we're going to talk about a few different topics today. But something you just mentioned, this whole idea of connection, right? And how because of what I would consider a small intentional act of connection, it's really strengthened our relationship. And as we talk about all of our topics today, it really goes back to this idea of connecting. I believe that as the world becomes more connected or the connection opportunities are greater, the true connections are becoming more and more rare, right? We see a lot, we hear a lot, we're inundated with these connection opportunities, but it's fleeting, right? We don't go deep. We don't say happy birthday to people. We don't get on their voice recordings and sing to them, even in bad pitches, right? We don't ask people how their last event was or what they're excited about. But when we do, those are the connections that we find are going to reap a fantastic reward. And then ultimately we start to see that people who are like us, we get connected with them. And then we look around to the left and right, and there's this upward spiral of energy. There's this upward spiral of connection. And then as we were talking before we actually went live, we start finding out that the world, whether it's industry, personal, that the world is smaller and more connected than we thought. We start realizing that great people seem to connect and be related, industry-wise, professionally, or even personally, to each other. And you say, Neal, do you know this person? I'm like, absolutely, from years back. And we had some names come up. And every name that came up, here's the effect that it had on both you and I. Those names put smiles on our faces, right? So as we thought about those people, we started saying, oh, yes, I know him. Oh, man, they're great. Or she is going to be phenomenal. And then we start to see that these are individuals who are intentional about making connections.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's, I think that's what people forget, right? And it's like John Maxwell has the book, everyone communicates, but few connect. And I mean, it's just the title itself is so true. And I think that's why when I chose to become an instructor and worked on getting approved for certain classes, a lot of what I teach is on communication. And because I think we have a communication communication problem in the industry as a whole, but I think just in life as a whole, people have forgotten how to communicate. And I think it got worse through COVID. So moving forward, I think people need to put forth a little bit more effort to make that connection. And some people, and I'm guilty of it too, like through Facebook, sometimes instead of writing out happy birthday, we're clicking on whatever the auto suggestion is. It's like, oh yeah, that one looks good. I'll just click on that. So it's one click, boom, there's a happy birthday. And that's kind of nice, but it's not the same thing as writing out a message or delivering that voicemail or sending a text message that is, unique and personal to them, because that is really how you make the true connection. So yes.
So on that, Paul, like technology has put us in the position to win by giving us all the information, is telling us what to know about people, what they care about. We are just opting for the easier, faster method, right? Sometimes I know on some of the apps, you can just respond by pressing the number 1 and it's going to say happy birthday, or if you do 2, it's going to be HBD, like happy birthday, those type things. But what if we separated ourselves from the mediocre mass of the many and we did just one small step, just something that's just slightly different? The impact that we have is going to be tremendously greater. So you and I can see the same birthdays for friends or same life event. Maybe it's an anniversary. You might do the auto-suggested response, as are the majority. I will open up my Messenger app and send a birthday or anniversary congratulations message. And here's what I know. I know that my video, that my response is going to evoke a different feeling and emotion, and thus I am going to get a different level of feeling and response from the individual that I send it to. And the beautiful, but also the challenging thing is the same tools and resources that are available to me are the same thing that's going to be available to you and to all of our viewers and listeners. The difference is, are we going to slow down that half second and just do one thing differently? So I'm always challenging people to think big, but also think differently. And if we can think big and think differently, and it's not a vast shift in thought, it's just, am I going to do what's memorable as opposed to what's easy or fast? And if we do those consistently with a greater number of people, we're really going to look around at our businesses, at our lives, at our relationships, and at our health. And then we start to see this small, different, big decision that I made really has created a lifestyle or business that's going to be profitable and beneficial, not only to us, but to those that we interact with.
You had so much stuff right there. I mean, it's like I'm listening and it's like, wow, you're hitting the nail on the head in so many different points. And the think big and think different, that is huge. But I think to do that effectively and to connect effectively, I think the main key is to slow down, right? And it's slow down to go faster is really what it is. I mean, we're all going so fast. We're spinning that wheel, and a lot of times we're getting nowhere, right? We're getting nowhere fast, but we're spinning that wheel and we feel like we're busy, but we're not really accomplishing much. And if we just slow down and really focus in on the big picture and what we're doing and taking the time to just do those little things to connect with people, those are the things that will get you further. And a lot of times will get you there faster.
Absolutely. So really quickly, you have on your shirt the Do Crew, right? And I absolutely love it. And I love the story and what you're doing with your Do Crew, the Mondays and all. But here's where sometimes we make a mistake. You mentioned if we slow down, we will often get further faster. But we're in this time now where we just think that we have to do something. And you just mentioned that we need to do the right thing, right? We need to look at the big picture, have a big vision, and know that the things that we're doing today, in the next hour, or this week, this month, this quarter, that we are actually doing the right thing so that we can reap greater rewards while actually doing less, right? And so that's something that I encourage people to do. I know you and I are big believers and supporters of making sure that you have this vision for your life, for your business relationship. There are a number of circles, but then make sure that once you have that vision, that you only do those things that are going to pull you forward and tied to some type of goal, some type of progress or achievement that's going to move you in that direction. And in our industry, whether it's on the educational side, the training, coaching, or real estate, we will see that there are lots of things that we can do that will absolutely generate no income, that would generate no productivity, that would generate no profit. And so if we aren't careful, we'll just find ourselves doing and not achieving anything. And so that's what I love about you, and talking about how you're doing more in 24, right? So that others can do, be, and have more, and making sure that every action, whether it's going to be your masterminds, whether it's going to be podcast recordings, or the guests that you bring on, that you're not just doing something just because it's a fad or just because you saw someone else do it. You're doing it out of this goal that you have to help us be better. And so I just want to commend you on that, sir.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate that, Neal. And I think sometimes people forget that people like you and I also are faced with these dilemmas and decisions that we've got to make, right? There's things we want to go do. I recently had to decide on going to do something that I would have had fun with it. I probably would have learned a lot from it, but I was torn, right? Do I go or don't I go? I feel like I got so much that I have to do. And I'm like, okay, so how much will this serve me? Will this serve me right now with what I need to do? Or is this something I can pass on and focus on what I need to do now and get that out of the way to help me be productive and move forward? And so it really ended up being the best decision to stay home, get done what I needed to get done, and move forward. But that wasn't easy either, because I really wanted to go do this other thing. And I'm like, but so we're faced with that too. We're faced with the same dilemma of picking up the phone and making the phone call and hearing the voices in our head of saying, oh, well, maybe they're out to lunch, or maybe it's not a good time. And then you have to just say, Paul, shut up, make the call. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Shut up and make the call. Because the fun thing is for us to go down the rabbit hole of doing busy work, maybe entertaining stuff, and not making that decision to do the right thing right now. And so, like you said, I think many people will say, well, no, they don't have to. They don't have these challenges if they only understood what I was going through. We understand what you're going through. How do we know? Because we're intimately familiar with these decisions on a daily basis. I love knowing that the difference between the greatest of us and those who are in the masses of the mediocre many, it's just one or two consistent decisions to do the the mundane activities, right? Consistently. The things that aren't sexy, the things that are not fun, but necessary to grow this thing, whether it's going to be prospecting, networking, building your business, making sure you get in there and have touch points with your database, making sure that we learn the right things to say, do, to implement as our businesses change in 2024 and beyond. Or we can decide to do the fun, sexy, shiny thing that ultimately isn't going to yield any lasting results. And then we look around and we're right there with the majority of people who are struggling to make a living or to make an impact in their lives. And that's not where we want to be.
Yeah, those shiny objects, those can be really distracting and really grab our attention and drift us off in a whole different direction. And that, I think that's kind of a good segue here into, like the changing market, right? The way things are changing, and, there's all kinds with technology, there's all kinds of new shiny pennies coming out, right? Some of them are good, legitimately good, but the thing is that you don't need to try them all. You don't need to buy into so many. You want to find something that works well for you and keep doing more of that. But in a changing market, it also requires you to get back to the basics. And people forget that. And I learned that the hard way back in 2008. But when I figured that out, it made 2009, 2010 huge years for me. So I wanted to just touch upon that with your client-centered real estate services and with the changing of the market. How have you seen the client expectations and demands evolve around these last few years?
Well, thank you for asking that and posing that to me, because it's something that I've built built my business, but I've also built my life around, right? Just understanding that very little of our success has anything that starts with us. And so I know the customer isn't always right, but we always need a customer in order to be profitable. And so what I have really done is every decision that I make, I'm looking at the process or the decision-making process through the lens of the client or customer that I'm looking to serve. I was just on a panel last week, and I identified that our greatest challenge as business owners, as entrepreneurs, is that we get wrong answers. And that's not the issue. The issue is that we get wrong answers because we ask the wrong questions. And that's often because we are asking questions from our viewpoints. We're asking questions that we want to answer, not that our client or customer needs answers. So in real estate, our questions might be, what number agent am I? How many sales sales volume did I have last year? Those are not the questions of our targeted client or customer audience. Typically, it's how do I purchase a home with less money down? How do I maximize my return on the investment? Those caliber of questions. And when we start asking the right client-centered questions, we start getting the right answers. And so even in this time right now, I believe that when it comes to technology, when it comes to just the environment or ecosystem in which we find ourselves, if we get back to what you mentioned, those foundational principles of, if we deliver outstanding service to our client or customer, if we become vital instead of just functional, they're going to want to do business with us. But this requires us to do the hard work of really diving in, knowing who our client or customer is, knowing what their pain points are, and then asking what tech, what apps are available in the market, not to make me look good, not that's going to have a filter so that you don't see my blemishes, not that's going to put captions on a bad video, right? But really asking what tech is available to make the entire process smoother, easier, faster, more engaging for X, and X being your client or customer. But Paul, I want to mention it goes back to making sure that we know who our client or customer is. Many of us are throwing a lot of things out there and we don't even know who our target is. We don't know who our ideal client is. So if you are working with, like in my case, affluent individuals or global buyers and sellers, they right now are not asking questions about FHA loans. They might not be necessarily concerned with interest rates on a traditional loan product. So I need to make sure that I'm not just doing videos, sharing content, putting infographics up about the conventional loan or FHA loan interest rates. Maybe it's going to be talking about retirement or 401ks. Maybe it could be with their investment portfolios or where there might be opportunities for second homes or rental income coming in on what used to be their primary residence. Maybe my advice to them is not to sell, but to rent out and then have property management come into play. So I think that as we leverage some of these tools, if we start asking the right questions, I do believe that it's not a idea or question of if you're going to use it or not. I believe that if you don't use technology to become more efficient in our processes, to be faster, to deliver more relevant and accurate information, I believe, especially in real estate, I believe they're going to be out of the business, right? It's not do I or don't I, it's how quickly will you, or you're just going to promote yourself to a customer. That's the way that I kindly say people fire themselves or quit. You're going to promote yourself to a customer and then be out of the industry.
Yeah, you've touched upon so many points there, and you've actually answered several of my next questions. But I just want to reiterate a couple of things. Asking the right questions. I mean, this is something that agents struggle with, right? It's like, well, what do I ask? What do I talk about? How, and there's a process there of learning this, and actually you can figure out what the next right question is if you listen to what your customer is saying to you, right? It's really that a point of listening and trying to put yourself in their shoes, right? We've all been taught the golden rule, and a long time ago I learned about the platinum rule, and that's do unto others as they would have done unto themselves. And I'm just like, wow, that just blew my mind when I learned that years ago. And I'm like, yeah, forget the golden rule. They don't want done unto them what I want done
Let's
unto
take it
me.
up a notch.
So yeah, let's kick it up a notch, and let's figure out what they need. Let's walk in their shoes. And that made a real big impact in my business years ago before I ever became a managing broker. And it just, I mean, the sales just seemed to pick up dramatically when I was just more concerned with them, and not so much like, oh, I got to make this sale, right? I got to meet my goals. Like, oh, I got to close this one. It's like, no. I'm like, you know what? If we don't find the right one today, that's okay. We will keep looking. We will find you the right one, right? You have to practice that patience, and make sure that when you're showing property, that you're listening.
Yeah.
I had people one time that came into an open house, never met them before. They said, "Oh, this really isn't the unit for me." I was like, "Well, what are you looking for?" They described what type of unit they wanted on the ocean block. And I'm like, this is up in Ocean City, Maryland. And I'm like, there's a unit that just came on the market today. I said, let me finish up my open house. I'll meet you there. They walked in. They're like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. We went to my office. We wrote up a contract, or at least an offer. And they were like, oh my God, this is crazy. We just met you. You showed us one property. It's exactly what we want. And here we are moving forward. And I'm like, well, I listened to what they wanted, right? And I knew the inventory, so I knew exactly where to bring them to. And so
So
I think,
on that, Paul, you just
yeah,
mentioned two things, right? First, you listened, but then you also knew your craft. You knew the inventory. You knew what was available. So you came off as competent right there. You had the character and your confidence that, hey, I know what it is you're looking for because I actually listened to you. And I believe that if we start putting those three C's together, that competence, confidence, and then having the character that's going to really hold it all together, I believe that sets us apart. And here's what I love is that the prospective buyers, they were like, what? Wait, like one time and you got this for us, because here's what their experience had likely been. Well, we're out here doing this thing. It's hard, it's challenging. We don't know what we're doing. Apparently, others that we're working with, or maybe have even crossed paths with, they didn't make it this easy. And so, Paul, what I want to remind your viewers, listeners of is that it's not that difficult to be better than the competition in this marketplace. If you really focus, if you know your craft, if you know your thing, if you are a person of high character, meaning that you have some morals in place, that you're going to operate ethically, and then if you come in with confidence because you know the craft and you're going to listen. Now, this is simple, but it's not easy. So I know that Paul puts a lot of time in. I know that we are kindred spirits in learning and being educated, and students as much as we are educators, but it really shows on the back end. So instead of watching TV or scrolling through social media, we might pick up a market inventory report and see what's going on. We might get out and preview properties when they come onto the market. We spend our time in that MLS at those hot sheets, seeing what's coming onto the marketplace. And those little things make a huge difference when we get lucky by having the opportunity meet preparation, right? And so I know for you, that was just one example, but it often happens over and over again. And then someone will meet you or I, and they'll say, well, that has never happened to me, right? Well, I don't have those stories. I ask myself, for a real estate example, are you doing open houses? Are you aware of the inventory? Are you comfortable enough to ask questions and listen? Then are you willing to do extra work? Because Paul could have said, you know what, I'm done with the open house. Let's get together next week. He was like, no, let's get together after I close this up. Let's go take a look. And then when they said, this is nice, it's not like he said, well, I'm going to give you time to think it over. It was, what's the next step? Let's go right up and offer. And that's the whole sales process, knowing this dance and how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to be orchestrated, and then having that confidence to actually execute. Once again, sir, when I say that I see the way you're operating, it is magical, but it's also encouraging because any of us are capable of doing it. And so that's why I want to encourage those who are listening to you, that are following you, that are connected with you, to really leverage your experience and the experiences that you've gone through, because there's something for all of us to learn, especially since you're so willing to share.
Yeah, and absolutely. I always tell agents, like, if I can do this and be successful, you can. There was absolutely nothing special about me when I started in real estate, other than the fact that I showed up and I did the work. And, I had agents telling me, Paul, you got to go out and do this. Paul, you got to go buy this, right? I invested a lot of money into my business when I started. Now, the advantage I might have had was that I've always been an entrepreneur. So I came in knowing, all right, this is what it takes to run a business, right? So I'm not coming from a 9-to-5 job, but at the same time, I mean, this is all skill set that people can learn, and they have to come in with the right mindset that, okay, I'm going to do whatever it's take. I got a mentor that's helping me with the ropes. I also have other agents in my office that are telling me, this is what I'm doing. This is what's working. This is what's not working. This is how I became successful. So I took all of that and I just implemented it into my business. I'm like, yeah, that's where I want to be, right? And so I did shoot to the top very quickly, but it came with working 6-7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, hitting the hot sheets every morning, and really, doing everything and just eating, sleeping, and drinking the stuff day in and day out. It was all about real estate. So anybody can do this business. I am totally convinced. They might need a little hand holding. They definitely need mentorship. That's what a lot of
Say that one
times.
more time, Paul. Come
Yeah,
on, repeat
they
that.
definitely need mentorship. I have had agents. Look, when I was recruiting agents for my brokerage, I had a school of real estate. So my low hanging fruit for recruiting and meeting my recruiting goals was brand new agents. And I was like, look, you got to connect with people. I used to pair people up, and I was like, no, I'm not a matchmaker. I said, here, talk to these 3 agents and see if anybody would want to mentor you. So many, no, I don't want a mentor. I don't want to have to pay for a mentor. I'm like, oh, that is such a big mistake. I'm like, look,
Because
some
the
mentors.
cost of not having a mentor is much more expensive.
Absolutely. I was happy to give up parts of my commission for my transactions to have my mentorship. And I have paid for mentorship in many different aspects of my life throughout the years. I kind of wish I had it when I had electrical contracting business back in the day before I ever became a real estate agent. I didn't have that mentorship. And that I look back and I'm like, man, if I had that mentorship, I could have, I kept hitting that brick wall and staying at that same line, right? I wasn't growing. I just kept like, I couldn't get to that next level. And if I had a mentor in my life, it would have made all the difference in the world. Now, I had great success, but I just kept trying to get to that next level. And I see that all the time in real estate, the struggle to even just get off the ground. Or if they get off the ground, it's like, how do I get to that next level? And they don't have the support with a mentorship or anything else to get them to that next level. So
Absolutely. Totally agree.
yeah, so that's a good segue. So how do you ensure that your team stays aligned with your vision of customer service excellence?
So the first thing that is important is for me to know what my vision is, right? And
Mhm.
so this whole idea of, if I don't know it, if I don't live it, if I'm not exuding this vision, then I can't expect others to embody or to uphold the standard. So for me, one of my mentors very long ago mentioned, Neal, let's build these pillars of success. What are these core values that you're going to live by? And so fortunately for me, mine are the same personally and professionally. So we just came up with some help from my dirty dozen, my inner circle. What I call my foundation. I have a few individuals that are very close and pivotal in my success. Professionally and personally, we came up with these 4 pillars of success, and it's excellence, service, leadership, and growth. And so everything we do, we operate in excellence, or we don't do it. We go back to the drawing board. board. Service over sales. The most important thing for me is to make sure that I am a servant leader. If I serve enough of the right people, I know that some great things are going to come back. Leadership. You and I know that all things rise and fall on leadership. Without effective leadership, is going to fail. And then growth. I just believe that we're either growing or we're dying. So there is no middle ground, no gray area there. So for me, I'm making sure that I always operate in those 4 pillars of success: excellence, service, leadership, and growth. But then that requires me to ensure that every sales meeting we have, we are going to be talking about the 4 pillars of success, right? It's just like we as adults, we as real estate professionals or entrepreneurs, we're not that much different than kids. We're just a little bit bigger. So we need to be reminded frequently. We need to remember daily of the goals, of the reason we do these things. So we're going to open our sales calls, our team meetings the same way. Hey, let's remember these 4 pillars of success. Now, we have 13 total characteristics that I really live by and do business by, but those 4 are those foundational principles. And then if we take more than a 20-minute break, when we resume our meeting, guess what we're hitting? Those 4 pillars of success. Remember that as we talk about role playing, as we're talking about lead conversion, lead generation, ascension, and retention, do they meet? Do our tactics meet those 4 pillars of success? And I believe that if we hold the flame up, if we allow people to see this thing on a consistent, continual basis, they are either going to rise, or if they start to fall, they're going to either work to get better, or they're just going to exit on their own accord, right? And so I just believe that in environments where we know that companies have mantras, visions, mission statements, those where it is continually and continuously held up and referred back to, I just believe that it's going to take hold in the hearts and minds of the people. So that's something that for my team, I'm always making sure that it's at the forefront of our minds. If we ask, what are the 4 pillars of success? If there is any hesitancy there, that means that I need to do a better job effectively communicating that piece. And then asking questions such as, where do we see a lack of the 4 pillars of success this week, this month, this quarter? Where do we see some shining examples of our pillars of success? And as they share those, we make sure that I, as the leader, that I listen, and then I go about implementing either the correct change, or I give accolades to those who actually embodied those pillars.
Yeah, and that's a lot. And you're hit the nail on the head though with all of those pillars. I mean, those are all so important. And even myself, I struggle with things like that. I know, I have a lot of good visions, and what I find for myself is by a lack of consistency, my vision always changes. And so I find myself going down a road, right? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe really that wasn't the vision I had for myself. And maybe this one is better. Or sometimes it just happens, right? My vision is here. And then all of a sudden there's a bump in the road, which brings me over here. And I'm like, wow, I didn't envision that, but that is so much better. Right. I mean, that's huge, but you got some great tips there. And I know the challenges of trying to keep your team focused on those, right? That's probably the biggest challenge. I know it does fall back on us as leaders that, yeah, if our team isn't executing properly, then we're doing something or not doing something. And we need to see that and make it the necessary change, right? So that's all good points there. Let me, you carry the title of world renowned, and I'll tell you that is a great title and a great label for you, because you are definitely, in my eyes, you are world renowned. I'd like to learn a little bit more about. Can you tell us a story how you founded that? Right, where did that come from, and what
Absolutely,
inspired
man.
you to be world renowned?
So I was with one of my coaches and mentors, team leaders, for 8.5 years. Fantastic dude. He and his business partner really just gave me an entry into this business when I had no business or understanding what real estate was, nor the opportunities that would really live in there for my family and I. And so at the time when it came time for me to split from him, and because he always treated his brokerage, his team, like a university. The idea was that whenever you leave here, I want you to be prepared to go and do this thing and create something. And so I was always studying and looking at, just various ideas of business models. And I knew that with my focus, because early on, I focused on global clientele and affluent individuals. So I fell into this team where we just worked with some really amazing people and just interesting people, fascinating stories and lives. And so when I started having conversations with the clientele, their idea was, how do you be memorable? How can you create this thing so that when you're gone, it lives on, but also that's something that people care about? So the very first thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to be a lot like all of the other realtors, a lot like the other brokerage or team leaders that I saw. And I wanted to put my name on something, right? I wanted it to be Oates and Associates, Oates Realty, Oates Real Estate. But then one of my clients asked me a question and he said, Neal, you do a lot of global business. What does Oates mean somewhere else in the world? And the reality was that it didn't mean anything, right? Neal Oates did not mean a thing. And so he challenged me from a great place. And he says, Neal, could you dare to dream bigger? And this is one of those times when you don't really look for that piece of advice or that challenge, but it comes to you. And I look back now, and the decision not to be Oates and Associates, but to be world-renowned real estate speaks volumes, right? It has changed the landscape of what I really believe my entire career and business, simply because I like the feeling, I like the, or should I say the emotion that it evokes from others when they say, well, who do you work for? And I say, I own world-renowned real estate. And it's one of those feelings where it's almost like, okay, it's either a pretty cool name or it's sort of egotistical, right? Because one of my colleagues very early on, he was like, world renowned, I've never heard of you. And so for me, being a salesperson, I said my quick, honest response, almost egotistical. It said, my response to him was, that's because you play in smaller circles than I do. Right. And so all of a sudden it became this fun thing, so much so that I changed all of my social media handles to Mr. World Renowned. No, I did not steal from Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, but Mr. World Renowned became my moniker. But then also one of my catchphrases, and something that I'm always telling people, because I believe that real estate, not just real estate, but this thing has an opportunity to put you in an environment, to put you in front of opportunities that might not otherwise exist. And so I know that in our industry, you always hear the word average, average days on market, average agent, average income, sales price. So I came up with this idea with some amazing help from a fantastic team that surrounds me. We just started playing against the word average. So we would always tell agents, buyers, clients, our colleagues, our competition, don't be average, be world renowned. And so whether I'm recruiting someone to be world renowned, or if I am sitting here and having this whole idea of don't hire an average agent, don't accept average marketing, be world renowned, right? And so that just really worked well into that. And so much so that it has become a way that we live life. And so now the whole be world renowned really goes hand in hand with the 4 pillars of success. And so I'm asking, are we world renowned in our excellence, service, leadership, and growth? If not, then I am a fraud. I am a public fraud when I have my name or any of the enterprises that I'm doing. All of them have some type of be world renowned attachment there. And so I just wanted to make sure a couple of things. First, that I have something, that I'm building something that's bigger than me. right? When you have the battle cry to be world renowned, that has nothing to do with Neal as much as it has to do with you as an individual, whether we're speaking relationally, personally, fitness, right? Physical fitness. Like, don't be the average person. Be world renowned when it comes to your fitness or with your communication skills. Heck, be world renowned when it comes to parenting. And so this is where that vision and having this big idea, slowing down and creating this deal, all because I listened to a gentleman who challenged me to be more. And it's been a heck of a ride since then. We are still working on building the Be World Renowned brand. We're going into different marketplaces throughout the country, and we have some things in the work abroad as well. But just this idea of being world class, being known worldwide for something that you do. And it was never my goal to be world renowned at real estate. It was really be world renowned at evoking emotion, encouraging people, motivating them, letting them see what's possible. And that's the whole story. That's the real story behind the real estate, Be World Renowned Real Estate. It was be world known for this thing, and it's just providing exceptional service, making people feel valued, letting them know that they are seen, that we are doing something to enhance their lives, not just to enhance our business.
Wow. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, you are definitely world renowned. And I think if people actually get to know you, they'll know right off the bat that it's nothing to do with ego. It really is. I mean, it's just the way you handle yourself and the way that you work with people. I've seen it. I love the branding that you've created for yourself. Because you've also tied in not only the world renowned name, but you've tied in the beard and the bow tie. And it's just like
the bow tie and the beard. Let's go, sir.
So,
Absolutely.
so there's never a possibility of not recognize you when people see you in public, right? So that to me is, that's when you start attracting people to you, is because they're going to recognize you. And then it's like they have the confidence to even come up and say hello, because they know for sure that's Neal Oates. I know by the beard, the bow tie, and that's Mr. World Renowned. So I think that's fabulous. What a great story.
One thing on that, I want to just say something to that point. Here's what I'm going to encourage everyone to do. When you see someone that you recognize, whether it's Paul, myself, like, just go up and speak to us. Right. So the assumption is, well, no, I see them. I know that I've watched them from afar. Here's what the reality is. Very few people who see us and know us ever come up and actually engage with us. The reason why we do things like this, the reason why we became instructors or we give to the people, is so that we can build connection. And as much as we love doing podcasts or web series and coaching and teaching and all of this, this is what we really need. We want that connection. So I did not get on here just to talk to you all. I got on here to strengthen my connection with Paul, so that the next time we are together, maybe we'll have some stories to share about the impact of this video here, right? So I just want to encourage you all, when you see me out, come speak to me. Let's press the flesh. Let's get to know each other. Let's put a handshake or a hug to the names, to the faces. And I know Paul would agree with that sentiment, because we are not here to build a wall or a gate around ourselves. We really do not think that much of ourselves. We just know that we've been given some fantastic opportunities to meet some great people, but ultimately both what Paul and I want to do, we want to have lasting impact. And we cannot consistently deliver that if you all don't engage with us. So come up, say hi, let's take some photos, share everything that you can from us. Dive in when you see Paul's videos or mine or on social. Comment. We will comment back. It's not like we're running these great big production teams that are going to be hitting 1 or HBD. If you get something from us, it's really from Paul or myself, because we understand. Paul mentioned it very early on that at the beginning of and throughout the pandemic, some connection was lost, right? And so I just know that we are yearning, all of us as human beings, we're yearning to get reconnected. And even in 2024, after this thing that started in 19 and 20, many of us are still hesitant. We still have not found a way to reconnect. So make sure that you connect with us. We would love to get to know you. We would love to get to hear about your story, why you're doing what you're doing, what's working for you and what's not. Because Paul and I, we're both students of people. We're just fascinated by the stories that we hear, by the personalities that we get to meet. And who knows, maybe you're going to be on on Paul's podcast, on his video, and maybe a speaker at his mastermind. We just need to get to know you. So Paul, I just want to say thank you again for always encouraging connection, right? I know that for us, this is not only what we do, but it's also who you are, sir. Is a phenomenal man, gentleman, and friend. So I appreciate you, boss.
Neil, thank you. I appreciate the compliments, and you know how I feel about you. I've expressed that, and I do want to I want to wrap this up real quick with a couple things. I know you teach classes on working in the global market and working with the affluent. So, what are a couple of quick names of classes that you teach, and then how can somebody connect with you if they wanted to reach out, social media, however? Let us know
Absolutely.
what that would be.
Okay, so first, I created and wrote some classes, and this is just from my experience, and it resonated with a lot of people because we know that oftentimes what's in the books or what's in the coursework is not founded on practical application or experience. So the one that I wrote that has been phenomenal success just across the world has been expanding your global reach, right? That's just one. How do we, as a guy from Alabama, a first generation realtor who only speaks English and Alabamanese, right? How do I create 67% of my business from working with global clientele? And that just really dives into this whole idea of expanding our global reach, maybe doing some things that are not first nature in the real estate industry or in any service-based industry, but it's much closer to our hearts and our heads than we realize. And then when it comes to working with the affluent, it is beyond the velvet rope, how to work with affluent clientele. That's one that's going to really pull back. Like these just foundational, easy to implement ideas of how do we serve affluent individuals. And it's going to show us, highlight some areas that are not as far away from us and our capability as we thought, right? It's not about your lineage or being from the right bloodline or growing up in the right area. It's not about the education that you have. It really is a few key items or activities, actions that are implemented in a strategic process. So the easiest way to connect with me, if you're on social media, is going to be at Mr. World Renowned. That's going to be one of the easiest ways. Other than that, it is going to be by going to my website, nealoatesjr.com, NEALOAT. ESJR.com. I always tell everyone that is the proper way to spell Neal and Oates, no IL or TS stuff over here. But then I'm always available via text. So I'm often teaching a lot or speaking or presenting. But if you text me, then I am going to respond typically within 24 hours, unless we're doing something at some type of convention that's abroad. But that's going to be my personal cell is 786-897-4832. 786-897-4832. Unlike Paul, I have not gotten big enough yet that I need answering services, that I've got to have a bat phone and all that. One day, they're going to text or call that number, Paul, and they're going to say, "Thank you for reaching the office of Neal Oates. This is his assistant." But right now, it's just me, and I'm having a blast doing it, having a blast connecting with individuals. And I really want people to know, if nothing else, every dream, every desire that you have in your head, in your heart, it was put there for a reason. And that, if you will consistently and intentionally paint this vision for yourself and do the work. Paul mentioned he just showed up and did the work, that he got some intelligent and knowledgeable people around him that would show him the way, get that mentorship. I believe that all of us would get to live our dreams. Now, it is going to be some work in the process, but I know that for you and I, doing these things that we love, that we wouldn't have it any other way, sir.
Yeah, great, a lot of great stuff there, Neal. And again, we're going to put all that information into the into the description below. So if you missed the phone number or any way to connect, that all that information will be below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit the like, subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a lot more great interviews like this. Neal, I appreciate you coming in and being one of the first. This is really awesome. Why don't you wrap us up with giving one last bit of advice to a real estate agent in today's market with things changing? A lot of agents that are working today didn't go through 2008, right? There's still a lot that have been through 08 and they're still working today, but there's a lot more, I think, that have not been through that. And I think they're probably struggling a little bit.
Okay, so my one piece of advice is going to be twofold. The first thing I would encourage every agent, especially a newer agent, to do: find out what your skill and gifting is, right? So for me, I am a communicator. So I leverage my communication skills into real estate. So first, find out what your skill, what your talent is. That's going to be the very first thing that I encourage every real estate agent to do. Secondly, identify your audience. Don't try to be all things to everyone. You are not going to succeed if you do that. So legally and lawfully, that's key, legally and lawfully, identify who your key audience is, that ideal client is, and then leverage your skill or your talent to speak to and communicate to identify that ideal client. And if you do that, you will find that your audience, they're going to relate to you. They're going to want what you have. They are going to seek you out, as opposed to always having to chase someone down. There are people right now that will not work with me at all, period, because of my skill and my ideal client. And I'm okay with that. However, I do know that because of my skill and talent matched up with my ideal client, my life, my business, my sanity is intact, and it's not as hard. So identify what your skill talent is, identify your target market, your ideal client. And if you'll put those two together, I believe that 2024 and beyond, it won't be easy, but it will be easier than those who don't marry those two together, sir.
Wow, that is fantastic advice. And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Mr. World-renowned Neal Oates Jr. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being here and providing such a wealth of knowledge and such great advice. I've even written down some things that I need to work on that you've reminded me of. And I'm like, this has just been truly a wonderful experience. I can't thank you enough for being here today.
So I didn't have a chance to write it down, but now, since I've said this stuff out loud to your audience, I've got to go in and make sure that I am checking all the boxes myself. Otherwise, I'm going to be that fraud, right? And so, Paul, I just want to tell you, sir, that it has been an absolute honor and privilege, not just today, but for being your friend for the years that we have. And I just can't wait to see where you go from here, where those who are attached to you go, because I believe that as we get connected and have relationships with great people, that great results are on the forefront in the future. So I'm excited to see, and I'm really excited to get to see it so close up, right? Because I can't wait for us to be hanging out elbow to elbow, telling stories about what happened in 2024 and beyond, simply because you wanted to serve more people, sir. So thank you, and you're appreciated.
Thank you, Neal. I appreciate you, and as always, and I look forward to maybe doing this again sometime real soon.
Can't wait, sir. Take care.
Take care.